Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. I want to thank everybody for the condolences about my cat. I have not seen Mojo in probably 10 years. He's been with my ex-wife, and she had reached out to me to tell me that he was not doing well. And then a few weeks later, we lost him. So I appreciate all the prayers. But her and her kids need most of the prayers because they've had him for the last decade. And they've grown up with him. And so it's that much more of a loss for them. Now, here are some pics of Mojo, the cat. This is him when he was just a little kitten. Got him from the pound. And with his brother George. We got them both because they were brothers. And as you can see, he's in here using the litter box. And he was so proud of himself because it was one of his first times in the litter box. And he was like, cool, I have somewhere to go to the bathroom. What a great cat he was. And this is him, full grown. And the term cat don't crack comes to mind. Cats don't seem to age, do they? And prayers go out to all of you who have lost pets. For many of us, it's our only true friend in life. So there's Mojo. He had the white belly and the, I don't know what they call this, the little boots and the tiger stripes. These by far, I've had a couple cats like this, and these by far are my favorite kinds of cats. They just seem to be so loving. I also like Siamese cats as well, but sometimes you don't, sometimes they don't pair well with people, from what I've heard. I'm more of a fluffy cat kind of guy. I do love the fluffy cats. And Mojo was a nice mix between the two. So prayers out to my ex-wife. Believe it or not, she was integral in helping me to wake up. I remember she gave me a book. I think it was The Cave of Treasures. And she goes, you need to read this. And that was one of the first things I started to read. And of course, the election, Obama won the election and the conservatives were devastated. But then at that point, we all began to realize that all of this is one big scam. Because what did Obama do? He dropped more bombs than Bush did before him. He acted exactly the way Bush did during the Gulf War. And that's when I began to wake up. I was like, there's something not right here. Found myself angry at Democrats all the time. And I'm still angry at Democrats, but not in the way I used to be. I was in the right-left paradigm. So the beginnings of this channel happened out of that. And the full, revelation of all the things that we've covered over the last decade. So Mojo kind of marks a period in my life where that happened. So let's get into also an update on my mother, because many of you had been asking about her. She was on a cruise and up, I think it was to Alaska. And I got a little bit more information from her that she did in fact come down with a fever and chills and a cough. And so she took it upon herself to go to the ship doctor, and they had tested her and she came out negative. But the doctor told her to come back and test again. She went back the next day and she tested positive, and so did her friend that she went on the cruise with. But her friend got the smack the nation, and she had like mild symptoms, but my mom got it a little bit worse. But here's the crazy thing. Even though everybody else on the ship was quote unquote protected, right? Because I think like 99% of the people were vaccinated. They actually made my mother quarantine. They didn't make the other people quarantine, but they said my mother had to because she did not have the smack the nation. Now, here's the thing. If these people are supposed to be protected, then what's the big scare? Why can't you just roll around and, enjoy the rest of the cruise? But instead, she had to be in her room for the last 2 days of the trip. I would ask for my money back. But isn't it weird? My mom's made it through all this time. The entire pandemic, she never, ever, ever, ever got COVID. And all of a sudden she goes on a cruise ship and she gets it. Or whatever it is they say that this thing is. Probably just the flu. Anyway, weird times. So my mom is feeling much better. I've been in contact with her, so everything is great. Now let's get into this film, Hypnotic. Now, what's this about? Well, Hypnotic is about a government program called Domino. And what they do is they recruit hypnotists or people that have the ability of suggestion. And the sole purpose of this government program called Domino is to increase these people's abilities so that they can weaponize them to enact mass mind control over large groups and humanity itself. Now, if all this is starting to sound familiar, it's because it is. It's because it is the benchmark, the hallmark of what we cover on this channel. Mass mind control through media, through entertainment, through news, through commercials. Now, the first thing I noticed when I decided to delve into this was the Hydra-like domino pattern in the movie poster. We'll break all that down later in the decode, but I've got some clips here. Now, let me give you a little bit of the backdrop of this. Ben Affleck is being chased by a powerful hypnotic. They call them hypnotics. They're people with these abilities who were in the program Domino. And these hypnotics can mind control hordes of humans all at one time. A lot like zombies. A lot like the people that we are living around right now. Zombies. What do you mean, Casey? There's no zombies. Yes, there are. Mind-controlled people telling on each other, ratting each other out, snitching each other out. You guys, they don't need to do a mechanism of control. All they need to do is keep turning all of us against each other. They don't need to enforce anything. All they need to do is trick people and convince people that someone is, quote unquote, breaking the law. Self-policing. And as the laws become more and more and more ridiculous, the people will be under such a spell that they don't care anymore. They won't even realize the kind of control that we're enacting on each other. Watch. So Ben Affleck and his sidekick are basically being attacked. This particular scene is in Mexico. They're being attacked by the zombie horde who is mind controlled by one person that is put them under hypnosis. Now, I may be pausing intermittently. I think I edited this together pretty good to where it's not going to catch any copyrights. But also the sound is horrible. So I'm going to have to basically help you with the sound. So I may be repeating some of the script here. Now, Ben Affleck finds out that he is one of the most powerful hypnotics. He doesn't realize this in the beginning, but he figures this out. And he has this hypnotic ability, and that his whole life was a lie. And he has to fight the power of suggestion against other hypnotics who try to control him.
At me, the next minute, it was literally as if I was inside their minds.
How come you have?
That's not possible. I've never done anything like this before.
What happened to your eye?
Camera drones and satellites everywhere these days.
What happened to your eye? Cameras and satellites. What did he say? Wait, hold on. Let me back this up.
Satellites everywhere these days.
Gotta beware of these things. So, now many of you will recognize this woman. She played alongside Will Smith in I Am Legend. And we had discovered some time ago that Will Smith's name translates to baldness injection. What do you mean, Casey? Well, Smith means to hit or pierce, to smite. And will is short for willow tree, which represents a head of hair. So Will Smith's name means baldness injection, or can mean. Now Artemis, according to ancient lore, was found under a willow tree by a brother named Alopecus, which was the root word that alopecia was derived from. And Artemis would use her arrows to pierce people and give them disease, just as her twin brother Apollo did. Now this actress's name is Alice Braga, and in I Am Legend, she leads Will Smith to the promised land and a cure for the zombie apocalypse. What was the cure? Well, there was a needle involved, an injection. Now, in this film, she leads Ben Affleck to discover his abilities to fight the master Hypnotic who is trying to take over the world. Now, Braga and Affleck then go to get some help fighting their nemesis. Who's trying to trick Affleck into revealing the location of his daughter who went missing. Now, it's revealed later in the movie that Affleck's daughter is the most powerful Hypnotic. And this is why the bad guy keeps coming after him. So they hook up with this guy that you just saw, this guy right here. He's got the, what is that, a goat or a bull on his shirt? They hook up with him, and as you just heard him say, satellites are linked up with cameras to find any person they want to on the planet through facial recognition. Now, I had covered this a few years ago when Trump was pushing the whole national real ID. Remember that? He was endorsing that. And I was telling you, you guys, once they have a detailed face print of you, they will be able to find you anywhere. Casey, they already have our faces. No, they don't. They will if you get a detailed face print. Now, many of us give up that right. I had to get a passport, and the passports do the same exact thing. There's a specific camera that has to be used, a very detailed face print. But the Real ID was a program to database all of our faces in very high detail. In fact, special cameras were purchased by all these DMVs, high resolution cameras to imprint your face, kind of like a fingerprint. And all that's put into the database, and then they can find you wherever they want from a satellite. So they're disclosing all this stuff to us through these films and television.
Asymmetrical shapes. Help fool facial recognition.
So what was going on there is he was wearing an eye patch. And they're like, why are you wearing that? And he's like, asymmetrical face. When they go to scan your face, if there's an eye patch on there, they can't read it. Now, remember when we were talking about during the pandemic, and remember we came up with a theory and we're like, what if they're putting these masks on people and forcing us all to wear masks because really they're testing out the facial recognition software to see if it's able to detect your face when most of your face is covered. Remember that? Remember how we were like, why is Walmart, of all people, trying to force these masks? And then we realized that when you go into Walmart and you do self-checkout, that these cameras are looking at you, right? I wonder if they were testing something out. Now, of course, that's just a theory, but these people, they're nefarious. They're not going to tell you exactly what they're doing all the time. That's why they have secret programs, right? There is no law or rule in the Constitution that says our government has to tell us every little thing, even when it applies directly to our rights. Of course, they're not going to tell us everything. Now, at this point in the film, we get more to the story of why the Domino program was started. It was started to control the masses through media and TV. Exactly why we have to decode these films, to deprogram you from the program. Let me check in with you guys. We'll keep going with this. Good morning, everybody. Seem to have lost quite a few people, haven't we? Usually it's about 1,000 of us that show up to the show, but over the last 2 or 3 weeks, seems like our channel has not had as many people showing up. Wonder what's going on. Let's keep going with this. So as you can see, here's the headlines. Let's watch.
Hypnotic did all this?
It's a worldwide play, brother. Controlling major news, events, organizations.
He calls it a worldwide plague. He says that these hypnotics are controlling the news and worldwide organizations.
Check it out.
And there it is right there. All the headlines are basically triggers. They're signals or sigils to trigger you. This is why we have to read between the headlines, don't we? We go, why are they talking about this so much? Or why are they talking about that so much? And that will be like tomorrow's show will be a between the headlines show. So we can figure out what the agenda is. Like the gas stoves, for instance. All right. Why are they going after those now? Well, we've decided that it's because they want to put everyone in the grid. They want to force you into the electric grid. So if there's no more propane in the outlying areas, well, then guess what? That's going to force people to be on the electric grid because they're not going to have an energy source. Soon after that, they'll outlaw wood-burning stoves. And then how are you going to keep warm in the winter? You see the problem here? Let's keep watching.
Pretty impressive, huh?
Hypnotics use them to make you see a version of the world that doesn't exist. Those were cues. Sound, voice, locking eyes.
So this is how they do it. Locking eyes, sound, voice. And watch.
How is it that you know so much about these hypnotics?
Because I am one. Your behavior conforms with this hypnotic construct. So everything that you see and do feels perfectly normal.
So you don't even realize that you're going through the motions. Some examples of this is marketing. Now I have a marketing degree. As many of you know, graphic communication from Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo. My first job out of college, I worked for a huge printing facility as an account manager for TV Guide. We printed the TV Guide. And at that point, I had no idea how marketing was used really to convince people to do certain things or force people to take certain actions. You don't realize until later in your life that we are controlled by marketing. Marketing, like the mark of the beast. Marking you. Then we get our first Apollo white horse sighting on the wall in a picture. Wait a minute. Did you guys see that? Oh, okay. I thought that was an inverted pentagram. It's not quite an inverted pentagram, but close.
Nothing we had survived. Maybe. Diana betrayed me.
Now, if you think I'm making all this up, Alice Braga, the actress we've been talking about, she plays a character named Diana. And guess what Diana and her name means? Hope you're sitting down for this one. Diana is associated with Artemis. You know, the goddess found under the willow tree by Alapicus, which is what we were just talking about.
And now you're going to kill her. Diana!
Now that I have your attention, let's continue to break down this film and find out how it fits into what they have in store for us for the future. So at this point, Ben Affleck finds out that his daughter is named Domino because he's trying to remember all this. He doesn't remember his daughter. He remembers his daughter, but he doesn't remember she's in this program. He doesn't remember that she's at the center of the program. So he realizes that they named the entire project after her because she has these off-the-charts hypnotic abilities. Here she is here.
The division only wanted to train her like they trained us, to be what she was born to be, the most powerful hypnotic in the world.
Division agent.
So he thinks that this is his wife, but it's actually Alice Braga is his wife, or Diana is his wife. But in his mind, it's been suggested to him that his wife is not her, that it's this woman, born November 4th. Now, that's an occult date as well. We won't get into all that. But he thinks that Vivian is his wife because he's under hypnotic suggestion.
Came home, had me, a family.
So he's recounting his life. He's like, wow, this is impossible. I can't believe she's an agent. Can't believe she was in the program. This isn't real.
This is my life.
Sorry.
He's sitting there looking at pictures of his past, trying to figure out how this could have happened, how he could have been living his whole life as a lie. Then he realizes that his entire life was being played out on a movie set. That none of it was real. And this reminds me of They Live, doesn't it? Now, remember all the signs in They Live telling you to buy, purchase, consume, work 8 hours, sleep 8 hours? Right? Well, this is Ben Affleck on the movie set under hypnotic suggestion. Rooftop. Everything's just facades propped up with sticks. And the entire purpose of this was to get him to reveal the location of his daughter. So they created this construct, kind of like the Matrix, to try and deceive him.
Your mind can't take much more.
Now, we've talked briefly about the forgetting that we call it, and deja vu, and how the ultimate goal is to wipe our brains. And remember when a lot of us lost our smell and our taste? Never really came back the way it should have? Well, I think these were the beginnings of memory loss. Because what actually is happening is you've forgotten what a food tastes like. Your memory of that food has been erased or altered. So, in the movie, Ben wipes his own memory to protect the location of his daughter. Then he left himself cues to try to remember where she was. And since he won't tell them where Domino is, they keep resetting him. They keep resetting his brain and wiping it. How do they do it? With an injection. Are you seeing what's going on now?
Of this, resets. Initiate the reset.
There goes the needle in the arm. And this is how they initiate the reset.
All right, people, let's go to reset. Places, everybody.
The power of suggestion, right? All these little triggers that we find in our decodes that we think mean nothing are actually seeded into our subconscious in movies, TV, and commercials to control the mind. And this is why they go through the trouble to embed all these little synchronicities inside of everything. It's basically the knockoff demonic version of how God speaks to us, because God speaks to us through synchronicity as well, doesn't he? I can tell you 1,000 things in my life that I thought were pure coincidence, but that were absolutely not a coincidence. Once you see the beginning from the end, once you get to a certain point in your life, you're like, that didn't happen by accident. That didn't happen by accident. The very reason why I'm speaking to you right now were because of circumstances in my life. I would have never thought that this is what I would be doing with my life at this point in my life. But here I am. And if every little thing hadn't happened exactly the way it was that it had in my life, I wouldn't be here right now. And so God kind of does it in the holy version of it, right? Through being still and knowing that he's God and listening and seeing him all around us and through us, through his perfect will in our lives, right?
Where's your daughter?
I don't know. Her hair. I remember her hair.
And as he is reset and re-enters the construct, the only thing that he remembers is her hair. Wow.
Heart rate is normal. He's deep in the construct now.
I've got something.
Now, even this part here at the end of the movie, when Affleck finally breaks the mind control and he remembers the location of his daughter, where is she located at? And we'll do a little Q&A here, because I want to see if you guys get the answer to this. Okay, are you ready? Let's get ready. Let's play this.
It looks like Deer Valley Lane dead ends into a cattle ranch belonging to a Carl and Delma Everett.
Deer Valley Lane. Okay, I'm going to go into the chat here. What is the significance of Deer Valley Lane? Let's see who gets it first. This chat takes a minute to catch up. So what is all this? This is visual voodoo. It's subliminal programming. We can also call it cinematic hypnosis. All right. What is Deer Valley Lane? Now, remember, use the tools that we've talked about on this show many, many times. All the little tools, the decryptors, the ciphers, right, that we've used. There you go. Surrender to Christ got it. Rebecca got it. Deer Valley Lane is devil. Look at this. Deer Valley Lane. Devil, right? Good job. So let's keep going here. Deer Valley Lane.
What's there?
So Affleck goes to the devil, Deer Valley Lane, right, to find his daughter, and she's playing with dominoes. She's even wearing a polka dot dress like dominoes. And here you see the spiral portal going right into her. Remember, the beast wants to take us through the death portal. The portal to everlasting destruction. The wide gate. And there you see the Hydra. And this is the mechanism by which he's going to take us through that wide gate if you accept the parasite, the Hydra. So you can be reborn into the beast instead of reborn into the Holy Spirit. And this is how they will erase the mind with the parasite, to prepare the body for the twin spirits. It's already happening, you guys. The programmed people are beginning to turn against God's holy people. The sorcery is strong. We are becoming more and more of a minority. We're becoming more and more hated and persecuted through our jobs, through our work, through the courts, trying to take our children away if we don't vaccinate them. Through a loss of our freedoms, our God-given freedoms, the encroachment on our freedoms, making it more and more impossible, more and more challenging to serve the Most High, because you always have to make a choice. You cannot serve two masters. Now, we've seen it around us. Some people who got poked are having memory issues, aren't they? And I believe that maybe even this whole Mandela phenomenon may have something to do with all this. It may be connected somehow. The power of suggestion. What would be the end goal? To discredit the Bible. So the people go, you know what? That's probably been changed. I'm just going to close my Bible and never open it again. That's what the devil wants. Let me give you an example. Let me help snap you out of the hypnosis. The word matrix means womb in the Bible. People say that word was never in there before. They swear that wasn't in there. But you can break the power of suggestion by realizing that in Spanish, for the last hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, the word womb is translated to matriz or matriz, M-A-T-R-I-Z. So is it a stretch to think that that same word, or very close to it, was translated in the Bible as womb? No, it's not. Unless you want to also say the Spanish word was replaced. Now, let's get into what dominoes actually are. Years and years ago, right around the beginning of this channel, we decoded the domino. And why did we do that? Well, the name Domino appeared in the movie Eyes Wide Shut, didn't it? I think it was the prostitute. Her name was Domino. And we decoded it. Dominoes originated from the original Illuminati masks. The Venetian Carnival. It's a simple mask. What does the mask represent? It represents the ability of a person to change their identity, to release their alter ego, their altered twin spirit. Domino. Watch this. Because in the end of the movie, one such mask looks a lot like these old Venetian masks. And this is Ben Affleck in the mask. And Diana is imagining this whole thing. He is some kind of mad scientist climbing inside of Diana's brain. So you have a nested lies here, right? You know, sometimes we get into some of these shows and it's a bit complicated to figure everything out. But at the end of it, you realize that these are nested lies. And the reason why they nest these lies is to keep you in the dark so that no one would ever believe what's really happening. No one would ever believe that the devil really is in complete control of this reality until Jesus returns. And the reason why the gate is so narrow to escape is because the lies are so deep.
We set ourselves and believe.
So she's imagining the whole thing. Now, the number 23 appears throughout this film. And I only discovered why when I did an anagram for the word hypnotic, which is the name of the film. There are exactly 23 results for the word hypnotic. Look at all the 23s in the movie. There's one on the bus.
Today, the Bank of Austin. There's a safe deposit box. Box 23.
Safe deposit box, number 23.
Box 23, is that the target?
Now, these are just the 23s that I found that I caught. There are probably many more. Then he goes into the house at the end of the movie and you see 2 and 3 light switches. You think this is going to have something to do with electricity? I think so. There are the 23 results for the word hypnotic. Wow. One of those results is copy hint. Could that be the twin spirits? I don't know. Anyway, tomorrow we will be back with more of the Honey Milk Ranch. So you guys some more of the property. I actually found a weed killing hack on YouTube. I want to share that with you without having to use Roundup. Can't wait to show you that. Killing the tares, right? That's what we're up to. And it actually, this hack that I found on YouTube actually works. Within 30 minutes, I saw the tares starting to die. Can't wait to show you that. And also share some more stories from the county road. Some interesting stories. We're also going to be reading between the headlines again about how the loss of our freedoms continue to erode. All right, good morning. We'll go into the chat for a little bit. Yes, it is in the names, Solemn Peace. Absolutely, it's in the names. And it's also in the birthdays as well. Birthdays, names. Why? Because the devil wants to be like the Most High. Tomorrow we're going to talk a little bit about that, about what exactly the Hydra is going to be about. It's about interfacing you with the mycelial network. We'll talk a little bit about that tomorrow. Because you can't be the devil and try to be like God if you can't read people's minds, can you? So this is their goal. Through the power of suggestion and the power of the mycelial network to interface you with the fungal network so they can control your mind. All right. Good morning. Do truth now. Tomorrow's too late. Well, guess what? I could be on here 9 hours a day sharing truth with you, but how many people would tune into that? It's too much. You have lives to live. We do what we can when we can. I go by what the Most High tells me, and he tells me that 30 to 45 minutes to an hour is enough for people to absorb and be caught up with. Because what happens too is, for some, like I just said, about half the people are tuning into the channel over the last 2 or 3 weeks. I have no idea what's going on. Probably the algorithms aren't sending the information out. Maybe people just don't want to know about how to prepare for the future going into the end times. We're already here. We have a narrow window to try to make a few changes in our life, to try to get out of this so that we're set up to where we're not controlled and the devil can have his way with us, because he will make you choose at some point. Right now, you don't have to make a choice, but at some point, you will have to choose your livelihood, your long-term security, whether or not you're going to have custody of your children. These choices will be presented to you, and you will have to choose. And many people will choose the wide gate. They'll be like, you know what? God will understand. God will understand. He doesn't want me to starve. He doesn't want me to lose my children. Right? But then God's going to say, no, you had a lot of chances. You could have done this, this, and that. But instead, you tried to serve two masters. You could have set this up a long time ago. I look back in my life, and I always tell you guys this story. And I'll end the show with this today. I went through all of my 20s and 30s. Into my early 40s, I was making great money. I always had a home that I owned in California. And I would just blow money. I would blow $10,000 on a vacation for the family. Vacations that they don't even remember. I go, hey, remember the time we went to Legoland? Not really. Remember the time we went to Disneyland and stayed at the Hyatt? Not really. And I think to myself, what I could have done with that money that I just blew. Way back then, I could have done what I did now. And so finally, now that when I was in my late 40s and God was like, okay, here's your other chance. Except this time, I wasn't making nearly the amount of money I was making back then. So it was a real struggle and lots of faith and lots of sacrifice to save that money, to sacrifice all the other things I could have been doing with that money in my life. A fraction of what I was making in my earlier life. And I'm like, this would have been so much easier had I done this 20 years ago. But because I was in the Matrix, and you think that all these things that you're supposed to do, like taking your family out to $200 a night dinners every week, and driving new cars, and paying extravagant mortgages, you think that that's what you're supposed to do when you make that money. But then you realize that the beast is a liar. He is a liar. And he tells you, hey, if you try hard enough, you can be a millionaire. Hey, if you go to school and get a career, your employers are going to love you and you'll never get laid off. And all of that is a lie. And he takes up all of your productive years and your resources, and he lies to you, and all that money just gets wasted. Thrown back into the beast. Paid in interest to all the blood-sucking banks. Right? Paying 2 and 3 times the actual amount of your house that's already overrated and overvalued. Paying it that in a mortgage. Do you think that's what God wants for us? Of course he doesn't. He wants you lean and mean. He wants you without debt. He wants you with things around you that are real resources that you can use to make it through the apocalypse. You guys, if I had to, there's 100 squirrels within 20 feet of my house. If I had to, I could eat a squirrel. If I had to, there's a million things I could eat on this property to survive. If I had to, I could build a fire and keep warm at night. The devil has nothing that he can do to people that are outside of the beast, because he can't take away anything anymore. Now, if you think they're going to go house to house and start taking people's property, you're sadly mistaken. Okay? There's not enough soldiers to do that. nor the devil doesn't have that will to do that. And I believe that when you escape, God protects you just like he did in the Bible. Just like he protected the Israelites who escaped from Egypt and were being chased by the Pharaoh. Didn't he? He protected them. Through all of the battles, he went to battle for them because they were in the wilderness, weren't they? So the devil is a liar. He's threatening to take your land, but he simply can't do it. And I realized that when I came out here to rural Arkansas. I realized that every single household has a gun, and we're all on the same page. Nobody, no government official is going to come in here. I mean, as long as you're paying your few $100s a year in taxes, no government official is going to come in here and take your land. Now, what have they done? Well, they're trying to hide the sun so that you can't use solar, right? So that's one thing they're doing to make it very difficult to be off-grid. But what's stopping us from lighting a candle or using a little bit of energy just to stay connected to the world and for a few objects to keep your, whatever charged up? What's stopping you from doing that? Nothing. So the enemy will attack the wilderness, but no weapon shall prosper. Do you see how the no weapon shall prosper verse applies only when you're in God's will? If you're not in God's will, the weapons that come against you will prosper. You have to be in that stillness, in the space. And if you're not there yet, God can work with you to get there. God can work with you to get there, and it's baby steps, one little step at a time. I didn't know the beginning from the end of the Honey Milk Ranch. Well, I kind of did. I had it in my mind. It was a dream. It was a prayer. Started in France. I was like, man, this is amazing and beautiful. What a gift. Mark got those properties from his father who had passed away. And I was like, man, it'd be cool to have this. But then I was like, well, not in a foreign country because this isn't your land. And when I got this property, when I bought the land, it was on faith. It was a faith move. Wasn't very much. And then every step of the way over the last 4 years, it's been sacrifice after sacrifice. Even giving up some things I really, really, really wanted. Because maybe, it wasn't in alignment with this project and what God wanted for me in my life. To be lean and mean without the hooks of the devil inside of me, worrying about my long-term stability and all these things. Worrying about having to go back and live with my mother. So, long-term sacrifices and faith. This is where God wants us. So, I love you guys. Let's go back in the chat here. Enough of me talking. See what you guys are on. Gregory asked, do you have public water? Yes, I do. It's $50 a month for water here. My total bills here do not exceed $300 a month. That's everything. Electricity, water, my cell phone. Heck, the internet's only $50 a month out here for fiber optic. Now, if I want to, I can dig a well. That's because this property does not have restrictions. So you're able to do that at some point. But everything has gone up. Even the price to dig a well out here has gone through the roof. Used to be a few $1,000s to dig a well. And now, because they know everybody wants to do it and they don't want you off of their water, and because the federal government thinks that they have some kind of claim over watersheds, right? Which would be the water under the ground too. They've somehow artificially inflated the cost to dig a well. I don't know how they did it, but I talk a lot with my contractor and he tells me all kinds of stories about how things that used to cost a few dollars have now increased in value by 1,000%. different parts and pieces for ducting work for your house. He's like, yeah, a 5-foot piece of this ducting costs like $100 or $300. I'm like, are you kidding me? And he's like, no. He's like, I have to pass these costs along to the customer. And so this has all happened within the last 5 years, you guys. Any person that works with their hands will tell you this. They will tell you that everything has increased in cost. And there's no reason for it. Any contractor out there, I don't know, okay, are there any contractors out there that can co-sign what I'm saying here? Any plumbers, any, anyone that does drywall, anyone that does anything out there? I know there are a few of you watching. Tell us what's happened to the cost of parts or air conditioning and heating. Let's see who's out there who can co-sign this. Yes, lumber was just the beginning. So remember the lumber apocalypse, and they tried to tell us, oh, it's because of the supply chain, right? It's the supply chain. No. That's not why lumber tripled in price. It's because they realized that, wow, we've got everyone locked down. The last thing we want them doing is going out and escaping all this on their own land somewhere where we can't tell them what to do. That's what really happened. So, Joe Dirt says everything is tripled. We're talking about plumbing parts, pipes. We're talking about even a bolt or a screw. Things that used to cost a few cents are now dollars. Yes, Jolly Rogers, he's an electrician. Yes, everything has doubled and tripled in price. And there's no logical reason. Now, we understand why the copper has gone up because of the electric kingdom. We explained that to you about 3 years ago. Remember that? Melissa says furnace parts are going up 20 and 30%. And notice how they never talk about that when they talk about inflation. They only talk about food or things like that. They'll say, oh, inflation's been corrected now. No, it hasn't. There are certain items in certain sectors, mainly the building sector, that have gone up exponentially. So, you get sticker shock when you go to buy some of these things. But there's always ways around it. The Most High is faithful, isn't he? I got my tankless water heater for a few $100s, and my contractor got it put in one day. So it was almost the same cost as a regular water heater, except it's on demand and it works from the propane tank. So you don't have to heat all this water. Now that's a steal for how much I got it for and installed for. But some of the plumbing parts were very expensive, and my contractor was telling me, he's like, this flexible pipe here, this plastic pipe used to cost this and now it costs that. So these are the times we're living in. So I'm a firm believer that God's not going to leave us hanging, and that as opportunities arise and after you've heard this message, that God will start to send little things into your life that will help you escape. Remember, no weapon shall prosper only if you're faithful and living in his will. And then he can protect you in this little pocket of protection, can't he? Just like he did the Israelites, just like he did Noah, just like he did Lot and his wife, right? And even the people that were surrounding Jesus. You guys, they could have killed all the disciples right there at the crucifixion of Jesus to try to wipe away his legacy, couldn't they have? They were all around him. They could have killed Mary, they could have killed all of them, but they didn't. Now, eventually, they all did die. A martyr's death, most of them. But God preserved them, and he can preserve you too. So, the whole myth that, oh, we're not supposed to be afraid, and we're not supposed to run, and we're not supposed to escape. There are many, many verses that say, let not your flight take place in winter. And there are many examples of people preserving or God preserving his people through them taking flight. So don't buy that lie either. That's just your subconscious trying to make excuses in your mind as to why you don't want to leave your situation. That's the devil talking. He's saying, oh, just stay right where you are. Maybe you can save some people. Probably like Lot's wife. Remember Lot and his wife? And Lot kept begging with God. He said, God, if there's even 1,000 people that are faithful, will you preserve Sodom and Gomorrah? And God said, there are not even 1,000 people. And Lot said, God, if there are even 100 people, will you preserve Sodom and Gomorrah? And he said, no, there aren't even 100 people. And he said, if there are even 10, there weren't even like 10. I don't remember the exact numbers. Probably butchering the story, but you guys all know the story. Are you going to be that person who keeps testing God when the clear signs are on the wall that the electric kingdom is cracking down, the grid, the facial recognition, the real ID, the national ID, and all that's happening in these cities and all the crazy, cryptic, gross laws that are being passed in these cities? Are you going to be the last person continuing to test God, saying, God, there has to be some faithful people here. I want to stay and maybe try to help some of them. Are you going to be that person? Or are you going to see the signs on the wall and escape while you can, while land is still relatively cheap in certain places of the country where you can be on unrestricted land? And maybe that might take some planning. Maybe that might take some sacrifice. Maybe that might take some faith. Maybe that might take banding together with like-minded people who maybe you can share the cost with and the burden. There's many, many ways out of the beast, because I can tell you in 10 years or 5 years, you're not going to want to be in those places. There's going to be so much wickedness, so much pain, so much lawlessness. I mean, my mother's sitting in Stockton. When I go to her house, my car's been broken into twice in the driveway. One time they threw a rock at the window. It didn't break. The second time they threw a rock through my back windshield, my truck. What's the use in being somewhere if you're going to be under constant attack and worrying? Fortunately, my catalytic converter didn't get stolen. I think on my truck, they're really close to the engine, so no one really wants the converters on my truck. But I hear so many stories of many of you that have had your catalytic converter stolen, which I believe the whole thing is a racket, literally, because what they've done is there's no government laws to stop that. Oh, they'll pass all these other laws. They'll pass a law to make you wear a mask or get a vaccine before you go to a job. But when millions of dollars in catalytic of converters are stolen, ruining the lives of people, hardworking people, people that go and spend 50 hours a week of their life working for someone else, and their car gets sawzawed off, and they have to spend $3,000 to get it fixed, which was all their spending money for the entire year. Why? Where are the laws to fix that? Where are these people bringing these catalytic converters to recycle them? Where are the laws that punish recyclers who accept these catalytic converters? Do you see the problem here? I'm sorry I'm getting upset, but this just burns me out. I've heard so many stories of the suffering of people. But part of that, it's where you're at. Not to say that doesn't happen out here, because it can and does. But at least out here, you have the right to defend your property. And people are going to think twice before walking through, half acre of woods when they know the person has a gun and there's 5 cameras pointed at him. And you can put a fence around your property. Things like this. So many of you have had your catalytic converter stolen. It's a travesty. It's such an easy thing to fix. You guys, they did bust up a ring. I think it was somewhere out here. They busted up this ring of catalytic converter thieves. And it was a full-on full-on organized crime. They found like 100,000 catalytic converters. It was like the number was unbelievable. It was like there were so many catalytic converters. It's like, think of all the pain that they caused people's lives to have to come up with this money to replace this thing. And notice, it's all about emissions, isn't it? Emissions. This has to be a government program. The government's probably behind it because they're the ones pushing the emissions, aren't they? Standards. They want the breakdown of your vehicle so that you'll go, you know what? I'll just get an electric car. You see the problem here? This is why we have to think around these people. Fortunately, the Most High is helping us navigate these waters so we can see what's going on here. So you don't go insane because of the deception and the trickery. So, that's pretty much it, you guys. I've been talking long enough. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Much love. Take care and be safe, everybody.